What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about SoFi. I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, what might cause volatility in the stock price, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So starting off with macro data, Monday we have pending home sales, potentially based on what the Feds have kind of mentioned about the housing market. That one might be something that the market cares about, but in reality, Monday is going to be more of a reflection day, plus linked to the technicals. So I'll go over the SoFi's technicals near the end of the video. Tuesday, we do have a couple big ones. So we have Chicago PMI and also FOMC minutes. So the market's going to be really looking at the minutes and kind of tearing it apart, and more specifically, what the members kind of are thinking. So in general, like 2024, nobody really cared about the FOMC minutes because generally we kind of knew what was going to be stated. But the last couple of reports, like people look at the members, kind of what they're orienting towards, whether that's more cuts, more just being stagnant, following the data. So this upcoming week will be a big one for that. And so potentially as a byproduct, if let's say a lot of members are in favor of more cuts, more specifically for January, this is where you could see the market start to price in potentially a cut. Right now though, there's only a 18.8% likelihood of a 25 basis point cut. So not all that high, but potentially by the end of the week, this could jump up to maybe 40-50% if everything goes according to plan. Aside from that, on Wednesday, we just have initial jobless claims. Thursday, the market is closed because of New Year's, so hopefully everyone has their New Year's resolutions kind of set and so forth. And then on Friday, we do have the S&P Global Manufacturing. Current forecast for that is 51.8. Anything above 50 shows more of an expansion. Anything below 50 shows more of a contraction. But with obviously the market's closed, don't anticipate any crazy volume on January the 2nd. Couple of things as well that's going to be occurring this week. One is just rebalancing. So this is the last week in Q4. So a lot of institutions will be rebalancing. And given the fact that SoFi did outperform the S&P, so for those institutions that actually have a fixed percentage for SoFi, that kind of means that they might be selling potentially. So just stay tuned if I see some abnormal transactions, whether that be on the secondary market or the dark pool, I will bring that up. In addition to that though, so far there really isn't anything officially planned for this week from SoFi, but historically speaking, we might actually see them announce the date of their earnings. So again, that could be something very, very positive. This time last year, they did submit it on January the 3rd, so the Friday. So maybe this year they might be moving it up one day, so announcing it on January the 2nd. And then, of course, every single time people will kind of tear this apart and really decode like exactly the timing, because typically if a company ever moves up their earnings, that's seen as positive. So January the 27th is when they did it in 2025. So again, they'll kind of use that as a benchmark, but nonetheless, this is possibly one big announcement that SoFi might be kind of doing. Aside from that, there really isn't anything that's come out more speculative or anything. So it's going to be an interesting short week. Aside from that, looking into shorts. So going into this upcoming week, 9.4% of the free float's being shorted, works to be 116 million shares overall being shorted. Still do see two signs of kind of sketchiness happening behind the scenes. So you have cost to borrow minimum being negative. So as per usual, you do have a couple brokers out there really paying people to short SoFi. Clearly hasn't really worked all that well, but you also do see some signs of naked shorting because there is more shares being shorted than on loan. That shouldn't happen. So again, that really hasn't suppressed SoFi all that much, but still something to kind of keep in mind. Looking at the options from a bull standpoint, you do see a consensus for it to be roughly around 27.50 to 28. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub kind of 26 to 26.50. So not much kind of volatility in reality. So I think both bulls and bears feel that it's going to be more of a stagnant week. One thing to take note of, though, is the open interest. So with it closing exactly on Friday at 27.07, so that does mean that the 27 and below strike prices are in the money. So you have 9,000 at the 27, 2,000 at the 26.50, and so forth. And based on some of the transactions that did occur after hours on Friday, it is fair to assume that a lot of that was already covered. So don't anticipate any bump up in the stock price. But this upcoming week, you have 5,000 at the 27, 4,000 at the 27.50, 13,000 at the 28, and then so forth and so forth. So just kind of keep that in mind. Potentially you could be seeing shorts try to manipulate it below these strike prices as what they tried to do on Friday. So this largely was kind of prompted by shorts. So rather interesting stuff. We haven't really seen this type of kind of crazy price action occur in SoFi for quite some time, but nonetheless, with it at 27.07, it is trading between this R1 and the pivot. So 26.63, 25.74 is going to be support levels. Flip side, 27.51 and 28.05. But like I said, both the bulls and the bears, from a options viewpoint, they're anticipating SoFi to be rather stagnant this week. So kind of interesting stuff. Aside from all of that though, on the actual chart itself. So Friday, it did have some signs of consolidation. Luckily enough, it did hold above that 100-day moving average. So that is sitting at 27 on the mark. So really watch for that to hold. Same with that 10-day moving average, and that's sitting at 26.75. So if those do break, then anticipate some kind of consolidation. Might be going in no man's land, similar type of price action to what happened at the beginning of December. Nonetheless, if we do have some good minutes come out, and let's say just whether that be SoFi specific, let's say they put out some news, then maybe you could see a nice push to that 50-day moving average. In SoFi's case, that 50-day moving average is a very, very big deal. So if it is able to successfully get above that for 2 consecutive days, this is where you could see a nice breakout. But like I said, I think there's a lot of uncertainty in the broader market. We see gold, silver rallying, Bitcoin still being stagnant and kind of consolidating a little bit. So a lot of fun stuff is all happening. Aside from that, stochastic RSI is at 76, so arguably considered overbought. So the first sign of weakness, you could see some consolidation. And so far, I haven't really seen anything negative or speculative being posted over the weekend. So nothing really coming out from Trump. So it's been more of a quiet weekend, which I think is fairly welcomed. So for those of you that kind of took the Friday off, kind of had a nice long weekend, quiet weekend that we didn't have to really panic and worry how the overnight trading is going to really be. Looking at the market position though, on a side note, you see still a good amount of willing buyers up to about that 25.78. So if for whatever reason it does break below that, then you could see some pretty crazy price action similar to what happened right here on November the 21st when it had 23.52 as the low. Flip side though, you do see not that much in willing sellers. So you have some willing sellers up until about that 25 or 27.51. So if SoFi does get a nice gentle push, then you could see some nice recovery going on. But there really hasn't been that much in articles, no new analyst ratings. So it's going to be largely how the data does come in. So let me know your thoughts on SoFi. Where do you see things going this upcoming week? Do you plan on buying more? Are you planning on selling a little bit? What's your kind of general thoughts on all of that? And then one final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid on-point buy signals on stocks, options, crypto. Put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades. Worthwhile to pop over there and check that out. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.